This is the Show Up Show, helping coaches, service providers, leaders, and entrepreneurs to master showing up to build their brand, authority, and grow their business. Whether it's showing up on social media, in front of an audience, on a live interview, or an actual stage, this podcast is going to help you overcome visibility fear to confidently brand yourself as the authority in your industry. I'm Joanne Chan, aka the Confidence and Visibility Queen, and I am on a mission to share how I went from a nobody to the confident leader I am today, what I have learned, and what I have done to build my brand and business from scratch, and help you do the same so that you can make an impact in the world with the meaningful work that you do. Whether you are new to the business world or feeling unsure about public visibility, or you want to be seen and heard in a way that doesn't feel icky but authentic to you, you will discover how to become visible in your own unique way and show up as the confident entrepreneur you have always dreamed about becoming. Now, it's time to get you show up and be confidently visible so you can easily attract more clients and opportunities for yourself. Joining us today is someone who has been an entrepreneur for over 10 years, specializing in lead generation campaigns using Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. He has spent millions of dollars in ad spend on over 821 ad accounts in dozens of industries, primarily home services and doctors. His agency, Brainwake Consulting, works with other marketing agencies to help their clients generate leads and close more deals. So guys, help me in welcoming the seasoned digital marketer, Paul Cassimus. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So you know what? When I was doing my research, I was so inspired by your journey of how you were actually a high school teacher or something like that. Then you went on to start your own possible business for 6 years and now become a running an agency. So what was your first motivation to quit your job and become an entrepreneur?
The motivation was really just like that. I've like that. You just feel it deeply of not being satisfied with where you're at. So when I was teaching, I got into that from a love of languages. I was teaching Spanish. But at that time in my life, it was just something I really enjoyed learning the languages, learning the culture, and things like that. But midway through the 2 years that I taught, I realized this is not the space for me. This is not where I needed to be putting all my creative energy into, because I just felt like I was always just drawn to the entrepreneurial space. And I had done a little bit of small sort of projects in college, like I bought textbooks and resold them and things like that. I just knew that teaching wasn't for me for my career. And so I had some friends from college who had started this popsicle business in Atlanta. I still am in Richmond, Virginia now. So I started the Richmond kind of portion of it, or the location of it, and did that for 6 years. And it was amazing. I learned a ton. And that was my first venture into being an entrepreneur full time. After 6 years, I felt like I accomplished everything I had set out to. I felt like I'd hit a ceiling of where my personal and professional growth could go with that particular business. And, felt more drawn to the marketing advertising aspect, the growth element. That's what I had focused on with the popsicles. Like I need to grow this business. And how do I do that? With branding, social media, and even, starting in the paid ads at that time. And then when I transitioned, it was, all right, what's a skill that I can have when we learn paid ads? Because there's a lot of ways that you can help somebody with the particular. And so that's where that transition happened to. Initially, I thought, well, I want to be a marketing consultant, but it was, I need to have an actual skill that I can bring to the table other than just, hey, run social, get a presence on social media. That wasn't quite enough. So yeah, now I've been been here in this online space for, in my 6th year. Just starting the 6th year of it.
Wow. So overall, I would say you had more than 10 years of experience in entrepreneurship, right? Being an entrepreneur. So looking
Yeah.
back on that on your journey, what would you say is your biggest failure and how did you overcome it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess a lot of minor failures. I mean, they're probably the biggest failure. And what's kind of cool about like, as long as you keep going, like nothing, few things will ever just completely, bring you down. I think honestly, it was just this past year. I'd say biggest failure in terms of was the biggest financial mistake I made. And all in all, I think it's something that a lot of people have experienced where I just hired somebody who was fantastic, but hired for the wrong role. And I did not get an ROI that I was looking for. And it ended up just being a lot of out expense in terms of payroll for this person. But it helped me realize what my true bottleneck was. I was trying to solve for a couple challenges in project management and fulfillment, and thought I knew what I needed and went and got someone highly qualified, but again, not for the specific service. So it ended up costing me a bit of money, um, but I survived it. So I think that was one of it. And then just along the way, just a lot of like, you know, trying different ventures that or kind of getting distracted from like the main course of like where's my expertise in, how can I best serve, and steering away from that. I think the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs have is shiny object syndrome, which is a expression we hear a lot in the space, but it's true because when you're really good at something and you're providing value, it seems very easy. It's like, it's just as easy as like riding a bicycle, getting up in the morning, making your breakfast. It's habit and routine. And when it's habit and routine, it can kind of get boring. Entrepreneurs don't like to be bored. So we want to find something new and exciting, then realizing like, the boring stuff, what we're good at is what makes us the most money. But even more importantly, that's where we can serve the best. I think the two are, hand in hand. Wherever I can serve the most and best is where I'm going to have the most financial success as well.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. I mean, I'm sure we can all resonate with the shiny object syndrome as entrepreneur. So because I asked that question because in one of your videos you talk about running a business is not only about the professional growth but also personal growth, right? And we all know that success is not a straight line, so which is why I asked the question like, what was your biggest failure and how did you overcome it? What would you say? What advice would you have for people who are for other entrepreneurs or agency owner, right, who might be listening to this right now and who might be thinking, they have been trying so many different strategies and did not even maybe even invested in ads and it wasn't working, right? It didn't generate them results. So and they are thinking about, oh my god, I've done so much and I've done everything and I'm still not getting the results that I want, and they might be thinking about giving up, right? So what advice would you have for these people?
Looking at it in a couple different ways, like each time it doesn't work, it's a learning experience. And what's your messaging? What's your offer? What are you promising or guaranteeing people? And you can read books on how to create offers, 100 or what is it, Ox Mosey's $100 million offers, the most popular book I think right now with people in our space. You can read that, a dozen times, but until you put it into practice for your specific service, you're not going to learn what those nuances are, what people actually want and need, and what you can charge for, but also what you're willing and able to do at that price. His example of, hey, I can do all this for these gyms for just, they pay a $500 deposit and I provide immense value. Well, he was able to do that because he knows how to leverage his time and where his skill set is at. But if you were in that space at the same time as him and trying to do the same thing, you might think, well, can't possibly fulfill for that rate. And that just shows maybe a gap in your skill and what you can charge for. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just might mean, well, maybe you need to change your offer, or maybe you need to change the specific type of client you're working with. And I've just found with my own self, like, with agencies as my clients, I was like, well, okay, well, agencies that are doing paid ads. Well, turns out you can get even more specific, and it's, well, agencies running paid ads for clients in lead generation spaces. So I'm not working with anyone that's in e-commerce, or I'm not working with, anything that's doing like any kind of online sales. I've worked a lot with online coaches and course creators because it is a similar process of, well, we need to get leads in with a lead magnet. We need to follow the steps. So to me, it's pretty similar, a local business and a coach. But I always like to think with like a paid ad campaign, you get that data really quickly. And it's a similar concept to any type of marketing initiative you might do. I mean, you may never ever run paid ads, but any kind of initiative that you do, you're going to have a plan, you're going to execute, and you're going to see the result. Based on the result, you learn how to do it again. Now, if you get what you're looking for, cool, you've got a successful campaign there. A lot of times it's not going to work. And I would say probably maybe 10% of what you execute will work. The worst thing is that no one even notices. That's kind of the beauty of marketing. Unless you do something completely egregious or even immoral, then like, yeah, you're going to get some really bad press. But most of the time, it's just going to be forgotten about. But then when you get that one that actually works, it's like a rocket ship to space. I like to equate it to, there's kind of two ways I analyze it. One is as an investment, especially now in 2024, we want instant gratification. We think that, especially with paid ads, it can be a flip a switch and suddenly you're making money.
Yeah.
And because there are people who are guaranteeing that, hey, you're a coach or course creator, in 30 days, I can double your business or you don't pay. That's a that's a crazy offer. Now, maybe some, like the small percent can actually fulfill, but that's what we want and expect. Whereas I think you should look at marketing and paid ads in particular as an investment. Maybe you spend $3,000-4,000 a month for 3 months, and maybe month 4 is when you start to actually maybe even break even. Because there's no other space where you could say, hey, put 10 grand in, and I'm going to triple it in 90 days, and it not be like, well, that's a scam. In any other industry where you're trying to say, hey, I can do this risk free, and you're going to get it's guaranteed profits, people are like, no, you're scamming me. That's a pyramid scheme. For some reason with marketing, people don't see it that way. So I think just breaking that conception, and anytime you go launch and it's not the result, it gives better odds to the one that comes next as you have more data. So it's almost like a combination of investing and gambling. Imagine if every time you're, playing blackjack at a casino, your odds go up 5%. You lose, in the next one, you now have a 55% chance of winning. Then you have a 60% chance. Well, over enough time and enough hands that you play, you will win 100%. Even though your odds of winning are never going to be 100%, that's the way I look at it. If that makes sense, because a couple of metaphors that I'm throwing out here.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, I like that you see it as an investment. And yeah, it's so true. Like, but nowadays I would say more and more people think marketing gurus are scammers, right? And they can, yeah, they promise you guarantee results and they don't deliver what they promise. So it's really bad, right? So what are some of the, I would say, what are some of the common mistakes that you see many businesses make when it comes to running ads and investing in paid ads?
A couple things. One would be quitting too soon. And usually if they quit too soon, it's because they expect that instant result. Um, the next thing is not looking at each data point. So with paid ads, it's the ad. We're getting, people say, well, look at my click-through rate. Look how amazing the click-through rate is, or look how amazing the lead cost is. But that's only the beginning. If we're generating leads, well, what's the point of a lead? Ultimately, we want that lead to turn into some kind of sale. And so if I'm working with a local business, it's lead, and I'm asking them, hey, we're getting some great lead costs, but what's the quality like? And so then we can kind of determine, okay, quality isn't as great. We're going to improve the quality, but we know the cost will go up. And at that point, the business owner usually realizes, hey, maybe I thought I wanted the cheapest leads and the most leads, but then that clogs up their system, that clogs up their sales. It's a lot of wasted time. So then they realize, oh, okay, actually a better qualified lead is better. Same thing with book calls. Like if it's a coach who's looking to get, a one-on-one client, or, sell someone into their coaching group, and they're on these calls with these prospects, and they find, well, none of these folks are ready to commit. They don't have the money to invest. Maybe they're in too early of a stage, like what I had mentioned with, my own clients, like, hey, if you're a marketing agency with only 2 clients, like you're too early. Like I'm not designed to work with you right now. So we got to figure out who that market is and then what that quality is. And then looking at that metric of what's not just the rate of leads to book calls, but shown up calls and quality of those shown up calls. And so as me, the marketer, if I'm working whether direct with the agency, and a lot of times I'm client facing. So if I'm working with a coaching course creator, I might say, hey, we saw that we got 20 book calls last week at a $50 cost per. Now, we think that's really good, but before we can tell if it's actually good, what was the show up rate like? If it's like, well, the show up rate was 10%. Okay, that's not good. We need to do a little bit better job in our targeting and our messaging, not just on the ads, but also what is the messaging on the landing page, on the calendar. Make sure everything's aligned. And so we're solving that bottleneck at that data point. Let's improve the show up rate. Well, now, let's say the show up rate of the week later, all right, great. Now it's 70, 80%. It's in a healthy range. Well, the people you spoke with, what was the quality like? What were they saying? So at each step, getting closer to the sale, we're going to look at what's the bottleneck and then break that bottleneck. And then, so there's each data point along the way, and it's never, it's not that straight line, but and people want it to just work immediately. Sometimes it does. If you've got a great offer and if you're really experienced, well, you've already gone through that process. If you're just starting out, you might have a great offer, but we just got to be able to find the right people and get that system working for you. So I think to bring it back to the question you asked is a lot of businesses will only focus on what I call the front end metrics. Okay, well, I should be getting leads at this cost or et cetera. But ultimately we're investing money to get a return on it. And so they forget about each step of it, and each step takes time. And that goes back to the other mistake. I think they're kind of hand in hand. They give up too soon because we haven't had enough time to break all the bottlenecks and get a system that works for them.
Yeah, so true, right? Because if you're talking about generating leads, right? I mean, these are people, they might not buy from you today, but they are in your funnels, right? Maybe a few months later, they will buy your offer, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, you still make money from that campaigns that you run like 3 months ago. So yeah, I really understand what you mean by that. It's not about the front end metrics that we want to measure, right? It's really about the long term, and it's an investment, like you said. So, so you have worked with so many clients and different industries and different agencies. What makes some get far more success and results than others in terms of advertising on social media?
It's a good question. I think so. It's what we talked about a minute ago of avoiding those mistakes of quitting too soon and not looking at those metrics. But I think also in how collaborative they are. I find that the best clients are the one like I like this person. I care about their success, not just especially but personally. Like I want to see them succeed. And the best clients I've had are very collaborative, and because they understand that it takes time, and they're not just saying, "Well, what have you done for me lately?" Well, you're not getting the result, and they can be very combative, and usually when they're doing that, they're not sharing data, and it's not because they're trying to like hide anything. They don't. I try to, you know, preach like, here's why I need this data from you. I need to really understand it. So there was one client where for probably like 5 6 months we were doing an okay job. We were getting the leads, the quality was all right. We were testing different channels, TikTok and Facebook, and we went through that whole process of what's the quality like, what's the show up rate of appointments, and then what's their closed deals. Well, I mean, yeah, it took at least 6 months, and then suddenly their business started to increase dramatically. And it would not have gotten there if they weren't patient, if they didn't see it as an investment, but also if they were not communicating frequently with me. This was a client that I used to be emailing multiple times a week. We'd hop on calls, and they would share that data of exactly what's happening. And working together in that way, I think, is what is a big reason why I was incredibly successful. I'm still working with that client. Now, I don't talk to them hardly, not nearly as much because they're too busy with the growth that they've had. They've hired more salespeople. They've had to do other stuff operationally to support that growth. And so the ones that I don't hear from, hey, what was the quality like? Well, and they never reply. But then a few days later, they're asking me questions. I'm like, I need you to answer the questions that I'm asking. Well, I need this data from you. I need this feedback. And if they're not providing that, if they're just completely silent, if they're silent for weeks at a time, sometimes that's good because it's like the other client, like, oh, yeah, they're busy. But if it's kind of a newer stage, usually I can tell the agency, I'm like, hey, we need to really reach out to this and get in touch with this person because we're not hearing from them, and we cannot improve until we get this data. I had another client that was sort of successful again, and the leads were stellar. And I kept asking, what's your show up rate like? How many of these leads, or excuse me, before the show up rate, how many of these leads are booking appointments? What's the show up rate like? What's the quality? Well, we don't track that. I'm like, you should be tracking that. And then a month later, they're like, hey, we want to find out what ads are leading to the most sales. I'm like, we can do that, but that's the wrong data. That's not going to be helpful. I'm like, without like shouting at you, because that's not my style. I'm like, you need to be tracking these data points because they just think lead sale. Well, in between, there's a lot more steps, and they completely ignored that. And so they were nice people, great to work with for the most part, but like we could have done a lot more for them if they just given more feedback.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. I mean, thanks for sharing those case studies. Now, the next question that I want to ask is, it's a it is a question that I personally want to know, right? So, what is the best social media platform to run ads right now? Because I know I told you before, I ran ads on Facebook before, and it's getting more and more expensive to run ads now, right, on Facebook. And I heard TikTok is now the cheapest. So, what would you recommend, or is it really based on where your target audience are hanging out?
It is, and I think there's a misconception of TikTok of, it's mostly Gen Z, younger millennials. Um, but I found that not to be the case. I've actually run some successful campaigns on TikTok for dentists where the offers for dental implants. Dental implants for people missing teeth, mostly, let's say 40 plus typically.
Yeah.
Now you would think, oh, well, people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s aren't on TikTok. It turns out they are. They're just, in a different capacity. So I think one is just like don't underestimate where your audience could be, especially with the most popular social media platforms. And test it. If you have the budget, then test both, and that's where those data points are going to be extremely helpful to know what that quality is. I think with the first example I gave, the very successful one, we started on both TikTok and Facebook, and lead cost was similar. TikTok might have been a little bit cheaper because we segmented the data. We could easily see all these leads from one platform, these leads from another. So that's an important thing too, is knowing like what's the source of the leads. And because they were fantastic about giving us this feedback, we found out within a couple of weeks, once we had a good enough sample size, well, we're getting more leads on TikTok, but we're getting more appointments from Facebook. So we shifted the budget all into Facebook. And I think that level of testing is good. It can be helpful if you're in a crowded space and knowing, well, a lot of my competitors are advertising on Facebook in particular. Well, maybe I should go to TikTok. I think what's great about it, it's a little bit more difficult to get started on TikTok simply because you have to have a video. What's great about Facebook is you can get started super quickly. You can just take a photo of yourself with your iPhone, write a little bit of ad copy, put your link in, and get live, within 20 minutes. But with TikTok, you need to have a video. It needs to be structured in a certain way, kind of follow, typical like structure of, let's say, ad copy. Have a hook, an intro, an offer. Here's your pain point, bio, call to action. There's a few ways you can kind of rearrange that, but that would be something to kind of consider on. Well, what's my budget? If you've got $30 a day, yeah, maybe just start with one, then try the other. But if you had, let's say, $100 a day or more, you can split it up, give it enough time to get enough data, and then make a determination of those higher tier metrics or those deeper funnel metrics, excuse me, deeper funnel metrics, as we might call them, of, well, a number of appointments, number of book calls, all on down the line, and make an evaluation that way.
So if we, I'm sure because most of my listeners, they are like coaches, consultants, service providers. If they are looking for an agency to run ads for them, what are some of the things that we need to, because there are so many agencies out there, to be honest, right? Which one do we know that we can trust and we can, yeah, we can. I think trust is the word, right? Like which one can we trust?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because there are a lot of agencies that specialize, excuse me, in coaches and course creators. And so determining who you can trust. I mean, case studies and testimonials are a thing, but this is the downside of where we're at, is that a lot of times those can be either falsified or kind of taken. It's like, hey, here's my case study, but it might be not even for person. So I think just know, like, hey, I want to hear your strategy straight from you. I'm glad I've got this proof of what you've done for others, but I think an understanding, like, hey, how well does this agency know the space? Can they talk through off the cuff of these types of metrics, these types of, and what strategies they've seen work, to evaluate it? Now, that's one thing, is knowing the strategy and the process, and then it's also the ad creative. I think that's become such a huge thing just in the past year, is agencies now have to be able to be lead strategists, because it's such a key thing for the success. You have to have your offer and service, of course, first, but then taking that offer and getting it into a piece of creative that's very compelling to draw in that audience. So a good agency will also provide it as a service, and advise the client on, hey, here's the type of videos we need from you, so they can work jointly. Again, I always like to say, we want to be on the same side of the table. We don't want to be opposing. Well, you do this, you do this. It's, hey, we're on the same side. We're creating stuff for the ads. You are too. And it's different types of creative, and you need both types. For a coach, the coach needs to be on video, and we need to be able to guide, or the agency needs to be able to guide the coach on different types of scripts, different type of content. Hey, here's what the data is saying is working best, so let's get a little bit more of it. Or this type of messaging is resonating, based on what we're seeing in the campaigns. So let's take that messaging and create more with it. Now, the agency themselves can also do, work with content creators or make their own stuff. So it's a little bit different type. So I think looking at that, like, hey, what kind of ad creative do you make? Or is that something that you advise on? And if they don't, I don't think it's not a bad thing, but it's just not a good enough thing. Now, you might find that, well, there's a big difference in pricing, maybe not. But if you're evaluating someone, they're both, let's say, $3,000 a month to work with, one provides creative, the other doesn't, it's kind of a no-brainer, because you need to have that. Especially, well, I was going to say especially on TikTok, but even on Facebook, you just need a variety of creative to test, and that's how another way you're going to outcompete in the space.
Yeah, so true. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is about AI. I know it's also one of the things that you are passionate about, right? So how are you currently using AI or leveraging on AI to help grow your business, right? Your own business, and also incorporate it into your own marketing strategies.
Yeah, so a lot of the AI I'm using is just like some back-end automations, and just, saving myself a ton of time of repetitive tasks. And then more recently been using it for writing ad copy. Now, the skills of ad copy or writing copy is still critical, because I feel like I'm in a great spot. I see so much of the same stuff now because everyone's using ChatGPT. And if you ever see "say goodbye to this" and "hello to them" is a structure that you see everywhere. And as soon as I see, I'm like, all right, they're lazy. They just throw in a ChatGPT, copy paste. So I have my team is just me and a woman. She's out in Oregon. A lot of what I do when we're working together, and she's, because I tell her, like, yeah, definitely use ChatGPT, but if you see the "say goodbye to" structure, immediately delete it. And so what we've worked on is the prompts to get a good unique style of copy from ChatGPT, but then also making sure that part of the process is we go back in and revise it and kind of tweak it and edit it. So to me, it's a good way to save myself a bit of that time. There's nothing worse than looking at a blank Google Doc and thinking, all right, I got to write some copy. Or if I'm looking at a landing page or a client brief, I got to take this client brief, understand it, summarize it, and then write some copy. So I can save myself a ton of time and mental bandwidth putting that into ChatGPT, getting a few different variations, and then it's easier for me to edit and revise what ChatGPT gives me than start from scratch. I've done a little bit with imagery creation. It's fine. I think real images still work because now, once everything is flooded with these AI images, people can spot them.
Yeah.
And it's just nothing better than the real deal, in my opinion. Now, some AI stuff can work really well. It's like anything, test it. If that's your only strategy, I would never recommend that. So that in that regard, I would say the copywriting is where I use it the most. And then, use it for some like data cleanup. If I'm trying to like organize data to then put into a spreadsheet. There's some cool ways. I guess the last bit that I almost forgot about was I'm really now into conversational AI bots. So when the leads come through, these AI bots, connect to the text messaging, can have a dialogue with that lead and help book that next call. And with that first client who significantly increased their business, I was also a big part of it with a conversational bot to help them. So I think it's really cool how that can work. And those are just some of my favorite things with the AI right now.
It reminds me of my life before having ChatGPT. So we all had to write our own copy, and like spend, just sit in front of our computer for hours and trying to write something out of nothing. So yeah, but I feel like nothing I see on in social media right now is real. I feel like not everyone is using ChatGPT. I could recognize it like right on the spot, just like you do. So yeah, I mean I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but yeah, I feel like it kills my creativity, every time when I just want to write something, I go to ChatGPT. But before that, I was like, I have to figure it out, right? I have to be creative about it. So yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing your expertise so generously with our listeners today. Now tell my people where they can find you online if they want to work with you. What exactly do you offer? Like how can people work with you?
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel. Which I think I've got links somewhere, and then LinkedIn. Those are probably my two main places where I put content. I do have a link that I've shared that we can share too, where I've got a couple free resources. They're not gated, so you don't even need to opt in. One is my ultimate guide to media buying, and that's really for running ads. And if you're running ads yourself, or if you're working with someone, it can be a helpful tool to know how to keep your ads running, how to keep them successful, and most importantly, what to do when things don't go according to plan, which is very common in marketing. The other is a case study on client retention. So there's a lot of practical information in there on how to retain clients. And then from there, people can book a call with me if they have an ad account. They're like, hey, I'm running ads and I'm just not sure what to do next. You can book a call for free. I'll take an audit. I'll give you, all this kind of consulting strategy advice because I enjoy doing it. So that being my offer there. So you'll have all those links there because I don't know the URLs off the top of my head.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll put all your links in the show note below. So yeah, I mean that is really a very generous offer that you help people to audit their ad account if they are running one for now. So yeah, I mean guys, I will put all the links in the show note below. So make sure you check them out and connect with Paul. And if you have any question, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below and we will get back to you. And thanks for listening and watching today. And until next time, keep showing up. Success doesn't show up for you until you show up and pursue your own success. Hi there, thanks for listening today, and I would love to meet you at our virtual dinner party. Once or twice a month, we come together as a community in a safe and empowering environment to help and support one another in our entrepreneurship journey. So what is a virtual dinner party? A VDP is not a networking event, it's not a teach event, and it's not a webinar where you don't get to talk. I want you to imagine the VDP being a cross between a mastermind, speed dating, and a Tony Robbins event. And most importantly, there is nothing for sale. My goal for you in attending our VDP is to help you build real confidence, gain more visibility for yourself, and build a deeper connection within our community. What is the catch? There isn't one. If you're a coach, consultant, entrepreneur, or podcaster, come and join us for a truly unique and world-class experience. And there is a choice of dates and times for you to attend. To RSVP, just send me a DM on Facebook with the word VDP now.